Welcome to Engineering Influence, a podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies. And today I'm very pleased to be joined by Jim Hoffman. He is just wrapping up his term as chairman of the Federal Agency's Procurement Advocacy Committee. And he's here to talk to us about a new product that's in development between the FAPA committee and the Army Corps of Engineers, one of our most important government agency clients. So, Jim, thank you very much for coming onto the program.
No, well, glad to be here.
So I want to start off for anybody out there who is engaged in work with federal agencies, especially the Corps, but any other Corps agency outside either DOD or it might be state, that are looking to get more engaged with ACEC. The Federal Agency Procurement Advocacy Committee is really the home where a lot of this work is done from the ACEC level. Can you tell us more about the committee and really what your focus is?
Sure. So first of all, we're an open committee. And as the name states, we go ahead and work with our federal agency partners to go ahead and understand what's coming out. If there's different programs, go ahead and advise membership. So right now, one key area is dissemination of information relative to IIJA.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's regulation or proposed regulation, and to the degree we can help maybe influence that regulation. So is it really needed? If it's needed, is there a way to minimize the impact on the community such that, the government partners can accomplish what they need and we can do it, at the most efficient point. A case in point, when I first joined the committee, there was something called All Small Businessmen Project. And up front, I just started, and I hadn't quite realized it was coming or whatnot. And this was about 2014 or 2015. And it turned out the SBA was briefing it. Mm-hmm. And so didn't really know that was coming. And then found out, okay, well, it's not so much it's already been decided. It is going to happen. But just understanding, the 2014, 2015 timeframe, that this was coming out so that myself as a small firm can position and with the All Small Businessmen Project program that's really taken life, here in 2020 area or whatnot, where it's really becoming dominant in the contract space. So that knowledge up front of what things are going on also just vastly important, as a small business leader to go ahead and see where we fit in the marketplace.
Absolutely. I mean, and you were summer associates out of McLean, Virginia.
Summer consultants.
Summer consultants. And how big is the firm?
We're a total of 60 people.
60 people.
That's
so
right.
You're right in that small business space.
That's correct.
And having that ability to have some visibility into the regulatory structure, because that's really where rubber meets the road 90% of the time, right? It's not just a question of what a committee of jurisdiction might be doing from a legislative perspective, but it's what the agencies are actually regulating and promulgating regulations and thinking about changing things and having that leading edge either to understand it or to influence the regulatory process as it's going on. The Army Corps, of course, is one of our most important players. They are so involved in so many different aspects of the built environment. And my understanding is that you're working with them on a playbook. Can you go into detail about what this is, how it came about, and what you're looking to get out of it?
Sure. Well, so first of all, just recently, last 3 years, I think the Army Corps of Engineers spend for AE services is about 44% of the total work for the federal government. Mm-hmm. So obviously, a very dominant piece. So the Corps of Engineers was at our last winter meeting. They approached us about developing a playbook for AEs. Mm-hmm. And so we're looking for to go ahead and do that. As engineers and firm leaders, we know that it's vital to have these partnerships with organizations like the Corps of Engineers. Mm-hmm. Most of us work for the Corps of Engineers. Yeah. It's not like they're just another client. Mm-hmm. The Corps of Engineer projects, they're vital to national security. They promote our waterways. Yeah. So really, really critical. They also support the warfighter and make our communities more resilient and better protected from flooding, improve access to clean water, and maintain those vital waterways we need for commerce. Yeah. So being at the table with the Corps gives ACC members credibility to create new opportunities and, more importantly, succeed in these projects with this partnership.
Yeah, these are some of the most important capital projects undertaken by the federal government. And I think that you always hear about the Corps coming when it's disaster relief or at the end of a hurricane, that the Army Corps is back out and they're going to fix a levee or they're going to deal with some flood mitigation issues. But really, when you look at the entire size and scope of what they do, the work is not just critical to the nation's infrastructure and also national security, but that also, like the point that you made, supporting the warfighter abroad. It's amazing how just the breadth of opportunity is out there for our industry to work with and engage with the Corps. And it's critically important to have a good relationship with the leadership of the Corps. And the one thing that I remember the meeting that took place with the committee is that I guess one of the other benefits of being part of the committee is you have leadership from the Corps. You have the chief engineer. You have the highest levels of Army Corps leadership at the table, where you have a direct line of communication with them. In your experience, how important has that been to helping your firm and other firms like yours navigate the complexities of working with the Corps?
Well, yeah, and that leadership, it typically is very senior executive
Mm-hmm.
leadership, the leadership that stays from year to year and doesn't transition with
Yes.
the commanders. And so it's been really beneficial. Each meeting we'll have representatives from the Corps of Engineers, NAFAC, and the Air Force, and we'll have dialogues with them for an hour each time, talking about issues that are germane to the day. And then we'll also rotate through with the other civilian agencies. So that dialogue's been very useful in trying to discuss concerns. As an example, there was a concern relative to the task order notification process, and so interacted with the Corps to try to mitigate and reduce the burden for the industry.
Yeah, so you are right there at the tip of the spear, really, on dealing with these things. I guess one of the questions about the playbook I have is, how is the playbook going to help firms deal with issues related to price escalation and contracting and kind of those issues that always kind of arise with dealing with federal agencies of the government?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think, first of all, right now, since the Corps has offered to do this with us, we first want to listen.
Yeah.
We're trying to understand what they're talking about. For example, partnering and quality.
Mm-hmm.
Are they the same? Or are they two separate issues?
Yeah.
And then, how are we going to interact, and, what's input from our mutual goals that we're going to develop? What are the metrics that we're going to decide if we have success or not?
Yeah.
Risk, time, cost.
Mm-hmm.
So those are various things. That I think after that, we can take a look at possibly the escalation issue. Right now. This very first meeting that we're inviting everyone to join us on, this is really start the dialogue, hear the vision from Pete Perez, and from there we'll take the next step.
Yeah, kind of open it up to all stakeholders, get as many voices at the table, have input, and everybody kind of engaged and involved, and take ownership, and then kind of work through all those basic kind of issues. What's the time frame that you're looking at from kind of getting this organizational structure done to actually producing a final document?
That's a great question. That's not really been established. Mm-hmm. We've had a couple of task force meetings on this particular issue to prepare to make sure we understand the playbook that might start from the contractor's playbook. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we have different concerns as the contractor. We might want to look at how this starts at the IDIQ level and then manifests itself to the task force level. My hope, and we'll have to hear from the Corps of Engineers, is that this is something that we could accomplish within a year's time, and hopefully this calendar year. But I think we need to go ahead and see what the messaging is and what the process is to make sure that we get those mutual goals incorporated.
Yeah. From a structural standpoint, if there's a firm listening to this and watching and saying, hey, so this is something we need to get involved in, and it's an open committee, so let's join. Is it still possible for a firm to engage in the process, or is the ship kind of left port?
No, that's a great question. Like, we're here today, we're really promoting this. Pete wanted to go ahead and make sure we get the word out.
Yeah.
And so any ACC member firm can come to the table.
Yeah.
So, there's the links out there. People can show up. They can show up in person here at ACC headquarters. They can attend virtually. But no, we are at the ground floor, and we welcome everybody.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think it's one of those benefits of ACEC membership, right? It's the fact that here's a committee you can join. It deals exactly with what you're working on, and here's this opportunity to shape the discussion. So if you're out there and you want to get active, here's your invitation. This is your invitation to have a seat at the table and to actually develop this playbook. I hope that the relationship with the core, I think, is something which is something that's very important to ACEC, especially with WRDA now becoming biennial, and of course that's a huge core bill. I mean, it's all core projects, right? It's all chiefs reports, so it's all a question of making sure that process goes on. So having that relationship is great, and the playbook hopefully will add to that. Anything else that you want to add about the committee or the playbook and looking forward, that we didn't cover already?
I think, first of all, maybe just about the Corps of Engineers, because they're such a dominant player in the AE space, and they really look to reach out and communicate. And for FAPA, we really look at them as kind of like the first agency to go ahead and try to address issues. Yeah. Because if we can go ahead and agree on any particular issue or process with the Corps of Engineers, then we can point to that those rules, processes to achieve the success with other agencies, and point it really as a model for collaboration. Relative to the committee, we have this meeting here coming up. Anyone can join. We have 2 meetings a year that are a day and a half, where we talked about we have those different federal agencies to include each of the 3 services come and talk with us. So invite people to go ahead and get active. Come on in. The more voices, the better. And personally, I've just such great knowledge that I've gained out of the committee to be a better business owner, better leader. And then really the people are fantastic. The ACC committee folks. We look together. Sometimes we have differences of opinion, right? But it's a very professional dialogue. We're just having another conversation, and there was some different perspectives and whatnot, but really walking through it in a respectful manner, and trying to have professional, educated conversations, sometimes about difficult issues that we need to get after as a council. So very important, and would really suggest, if anyone's interested in the federal agency procurement advocacy, please join us, and certainly join us on the 14th of April.
Absolutely.
Pete Perez and the Corps of Engineers.
Yeah, I think you're really well said. I think that, one of the things that came up in conversation this week in the office is like the difference between, you have doctors, you have lawyers, and you have engineers, right? And it's kind of like, people think doctors, people think lawyers. Why are they considered like different than other professions? And it's largely because they really stick together, and they actually protect everything around them. So they protect their bubble, right? And that's something which through ACEC we want to do with engineers, is that we want to create that same kind of, as a council, protect the interests of the industry. And the only way that we can protect and promote the interests of the industry is we have more voices at the table. And especially with a committee like this that has regular conversations with, as you put it, executive leadership, especially at the Army Corps, not so much the leadership, the military leadership that changes, but the professionals who stay with the Corps for decades. And having that institutional relationship is critical, because, the Corps is one of those few government entities that is collaborative, but also is very focused on improving process or actually moving the ball forward and getting things done, right? Because they're also judged by their open projects versus completed projects, their backlog. That used to always be a point of contention when I was on the T&I committee. It's a question of how many projects do you still have open, and funding for future. And having that ability to focus and shape the conversation is critically important. So that's an open invitation. Anyone out there who's dealing with federal agencies, FAPA is the place to go. It's an open committee, acec.org. You can learn more. And Jim, thank you very much for being part of the program today. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff.
And again, this has been Engineering Influence, podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies. We'll see you next time.